This is the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast session number 265. Rob de Groof goes online.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Let's take this international party over to the Netherlands. Hey, it's Jason Linett, and excited to have Rob de Groof back on the program in this special series where we're highlighting the work of people who have been doing hypnosis online and live and interactive video conference for a number of years. And Rob is over in Belgium, over in the Netherlands. And I reached out to Rob because he put up an interesting video, which we'll share this in the show notes over at worksmarthypnosis.com, talking about how the Netherlands is a very small community and how the aspects of working interactively online is something that's a bit new over there, but also kind of noticing the trend of exactly how people are now, of course, warming up to the idea, how he has a wife from Bulgaria and she's often communicating with family through online video conference as well. And just kind of this going marketing trend right now where people are kind of shifting over and realizing this is just as viable. And in this conversation, you're going to hear Rob and I go into a dialogue about how basically it becomes an extension of your pre-talk. How do you deal with the situation if the call may drop out? How do you modify some of the specific tactics that you use? And how do you better condition not only the client, but even yourself to have a much more successful experience? And I'd share in this dialogue too, we talk about the ongoing nature of training. That I tell the story that it's like 7 years ago, I was launching a digital course and I was at a conference selling a product with an empty table when everyone else had a stack of DVDs. Nowadays, Rob and I decided to trade our programs to each other rather than give each other money, and a few clicks and we release the Kraken of all things, all of our education. So again, this place where a trend is shifting, innovation is moving forward, especially now in a time where people can definitely benefit from the skills of professional hypnosis. So be sure to check out the show notes of this episode at worksmarthypnosis.com because there's a couple of videos that Rob has put up recently that will get permission to add those here as well for you to check out. And while you're there too, check out worksmarthypnosis.com/now online. To go to that page, which no punctuation, no space in the middle, just /now online, that'll redirect over to episode 260, which is where I did the first episode to kind of kick off this coronavirus response series. And on that page, there are several step-by-step technical tutorials to show you how to use some of these video conferencing platforms. There's a bit of a shopping guide in terms of what technologies and what resources I'm happy to endorse and recommend. There's a listing of upcoming live interactive online training events to use this as a time to further your skills and advance your education in terms of helping your clients. And that's kind of our hub where we keep adding more content of exactly how to be out there helping clients, even though we might not necessarily be able to be in the exact same room. So check that out, worksmarthypnosis.com/now online. So with that, let's jump into this content-packed session. Here we go. Episode number 265, Rob de Groof goes online. Hey, Rob, so I invited you to be on here during this special series because I know you've got an interesting take on this being in Europe in terms of how we modify our hypnosis process. But for those of you that are new to Rob, could you briefly introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm Rob de Groof from Belgium. I'm the owner of the Hypnosis Center in Belgium. I work here with 7 therapists in 3 different cities. And I'm also the owner of the European Hypnosis Academy. At the moment, I'm traveling the world, not at the moment, of course, but that's what was on my schedule. Traveling and teaching a lot in Belgium as well. I don't do that much sessions anymore as I did in the past. I still do sessions, but not like 5 a day, 5 days a week anymore, because I'm more concentrated on running the business and doing the trainings and the traveling.
Yeah, which I love that as an intro to this, that the further we get into our career, I began doing like upwards of 35 to 45 sessions a week. And I called it out in my early years going, hey, I'm young at this. I can burn out now. And I'd say that's probably where I built a lot of my skill. When nowadays even as a lot of the work has pivoted online, keeping it to be about maybe, 10 to 15, sometimes just 12 or so appointments a week. Because as I say, clearly doing hypnosis sessions is not the only hypnosis thing that I do. And you fit into that category as well. And for those that want to go back, episode number 167 of this series, we'll link to it in the show notes. That came out in June of 2018 was when Rob was first on the program. So we're talking about online hypnosis and some of the modifications that are being made as the whole virus pandemic is going on. And Rob, do you have some thoughts you can kind of share to kind of kick us into this dialogue here?
Yeah, so of course the time is making us changing our business to online. Here in Belgium, it's not that easy because my therapist. I was still in Australia when everything happened, and I asked my therapist to start calling the clients because here in Belgium the first date was the 3rd of April that we couldn't do sessions one-to-one, and now it's already the 5th, and it will be prolonged, of course. So I asked my therapist to start calling the clients who had a session scheduled during that period, and only like maybe 2% of our clients were happy to do an online session. Most of them said, okay, no worries, we will do it after 3 of April, simply because of the fact that here in Belgium people are not that used to do conversations online. Of course, they getting used to it now because you see these things on television now that people have to do video calls with their grandparents who are in retirement homes, who are totally closed for visitors and things like that. So they start getting used to it, but still for a hypnosis session they are like, oh, no, I want to see you one-to-one. And I think it's a bit of the culture because everything is close by. Here in Belgium you can only like drive 2 hours and then you leave the country. So
Mhm.
everybody lives close by. They go and visit each other, and they don't do that much online sessions. I see the difference because I'm married to somebody from Bulgaria. My wife is from Bulgaria, and her mother lives still in Bulgaria. So they are video chatting all the time. So they have that culture because a lot of Bulgarians are living all around the world, and they are used to it. So that's a different approach.
There's something to highlight, and this is a conversation that we haven't yet done in this series, which is that sometimes in business, you have to sell the platform before you can actually sell the product. And what I mean by this is I go back to a time frame where I had just launched my online courses, and I was at a hypnosis convention when everyone else had a big stack of DVDs on their table and I had an empty table. And quite honestly, this was like 2013. My goal of that event was empty table, highest sales. That I was not delivering anything tangible. When nowadays, I think to Rob, when you and I think it was like 2 years ago that you came over and you said to me, it's like, oh, I want to pick up your business program. And I responded, oh, good. I want to pick up all of your stuff too. Let's just trade.
Yeah, correct.
Where the idea of, simply clicking a few buttons and suddenly we had unleashed the Kraken of all of our information to each other. That was something we didn't have as knowledge 20 years ago. And now that's a conversation we can easily have. So let's go back to that. You said you only had a small percentage drop off?
No, the most of the people ask to do the session after reschedule after the
Okay.
3rd of. So only like 2 or 3% of the people wanted to do an online session. So I had a team meeting, an online team meeting with my 7 therapists yesterday, and I decided to create a video where I will explain how an online session is going on, how they have to install themselves at home, because I did a lot of online sessions already in the past with people who live abroad, Belgian people or Dutch people, but also people English speakers from all around the world. And a lot of the times you see, they start a session and then you see they have the laptop on their knees, and then you say, no, I want you to put the laptop on a table so that it's stable, so that it can't fall when you never know how they're gonna react in the hypnosis. or that there are still like children running around or animals running around and things like that. So I think a good idea is, and that's something I'm going to do the next days, is to create a video wherein I explain and show them how they have to prepare for a good online session at their home. So they have to go and sit in a room where nobody will disturb them, how they have to install their tablet or their phone or their laptop so that it's good and stable, so that people see that it's actually something that's actually, for me, an online session is exactly the same as a one-to-one session, and
Yes.
it works sometimes even better, and because they're at their own home, they're at ease, and but people have to get informed about the way that we are going to work the next few months. I think because here in Belgium they are still holding to the 5th of April, but I'm quite sure it will be some. In the Netherlands, they decided tonight that all events will be cancelled until the 1st of June. So I
Mhm.
think we are going to follow. We are so close by. So.
Right. And I think there is at least, it's a different situation. And I hate to give this as an example that, someone in your family or maybe even you goes through something very specific and medical, and it be kind of rude of someone to go, well, no, that doesn't work for me. We're kind of all in this together. Yeah, I had to explain to my kids that we're launching this one. We're recording in the middle of March. This is actually launching on April 9th. Happy birthday, Max. It's his 7th birthday as this comes out in the future. But having to explain to my kids is like, we've never been through this before. And you and I were chatting before we jumped in that I was communicating with people for a class that was in April that we just moved over to July, and already opening up the dialogue, but still, this is remaining optimistic. I want to go back to exactly what you just talked about, though, which I think this is the solution. And this is really kind of what we've done with hypnosis ever since many of us got into this, that we are setting that frame and then inviting someone into it. So you're talking about doing an educational resource for your staff so they now know how to do these sessions, right?
No, it's more for the clients.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, even better.
yeah. I really want to make a video that the clients can see how they have to install at home. That they are ready. So that the moment that one of my therapists comes online and that they don't have to tell the client anymore. Oh no, maybe you have to put your laptop like this, or you have to put your phone like this, so I have a better view. So if the clients are already prepared, educated, how they have to prepare themselves to have a good session, then I think there will also be more trust in whatever is going on. So because I think one of the problems at the moment, I think there are two things playing here in Belgium. The first thing is they're not used to using these platforms, especially not for therapeutic interventions. And the second is, of course, the fact that there was the date, the 3rd of April. Now it's the 5th of April, so it
Mhm.
was still very close by. And they said, okay, let's just postpone it, and then we will do the session later. But I think the moment our government will announce that the dates will be much later in the future, that everything will go back to normal, then people will understand that they have to do something alternative if they want a good session. So we actually we the law says that we can still do sessions, but then it has to be an urgent session. So somebody who's in a program for depression or something and really needs you, then we are still allowed to do a one-on-one session. But of course, most of the clients don't want to travel and don't want to take the risk. So they eventually they will go to that. They will opt in for an online session. But then I want also to be prepared and give them a good a video so that they can be prepared to do a good session.
Yeah, what's great about what you just said there is how if we look at the nature of, again, the standard process of hypnosis, that we very often do a pre-talk, which sets the foundation of here's what is going to happen, here's what's not going to happen. And to look at any modifications we might be making right now is just simply an extension to that. This is why by the time this episode launches, I'm recording the videos tomorrow. I'm replacing some of the videos on the Virginia Hypnosis website because to have a video up right now talking about when you come into the office, when you're sitting in one of these chairs is a
Yep.
little
That's,
incongruent. And
yep. Of
I'm
course.
purposefully not going to do the full production value that's on some of the other videos on the page because they're going to be shot in front of my computer.
Mm.
I may do the second camera take as I did, where it kind of shows the setup of what I'm looking at. And again, just treat it as this is how, as much as we bring an attitude of normalcy to it, as much as possible, really is what presents to the client, okay, this is just how we do it.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I said to my staff yesterday as well. We already have this because I don't like to do pre-talks in the therapy room. Like a few years ago, I recorded a pre-talk video, so they just receive it the moment they make an appointment, so they can watch it at home and they get all the information. And that's what I gave as an example to my staff, my therapy staff. I said, okay, let's make another video in the same style as we do, as I recorded the pre-talk video, wherein we explain what is a good online session, how they can prepare themselves. And of course, in also in my pre-talk session is when you have still questions, the moment you arrive in the hypnosis center, you can ask all the questions. Yeah, of course they're not going to arrive in the hypnosis center anymore for a few months, so we should adapt all those things a bit to make it of course congruent with what is going on.
Yeah, and I think in the long term, we're going to come back to a state of new normal. Yet there's going to be some innovation that comes out of this that now it proves even more greater viability as this is a process. You said something earlier I want to go back to, which was that from your perspective, the session online is the same as the session in person. Can you expand on some thoughts on that?
My sessions are always really short and powerful. And I can do the same online. I had this client it was actually an Italian guy who lived in Switzerland, and he was booking online sessions with me all the time, and he never had an issue to solve. So he just wanted to experience hypnosis. But of course, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, he wanted really, like, normally I do a session, it's like 10-15 minutes when I have to solve a problem, but here there was no problem. He just wanted to experience as much hypnosis for his money. So one day because I work in Dutch, of course, all the time. So whenever I have an English speaking client, for me, it's a very good practice because at that time, I was still preparing myself to start traveling and also go to conventions. But of course, in conventions, I want to do demonstrations, but I want to do demonstrations in English because that's the language at those conventions. But I most of the time I do sessions in Dutch, so I really want to get used to do my demonstrations in English as well. So this Italian guy was actually he paid me to practice my English demonstrations with him, and there was this one appointment that he made, and he said, yeah, I really want to go really deep and experience a lot of things. And so I actually did my entire hypnosis show with that guy online. I
Nice.
also every bit of music that I use in my hypnosis show, I sent through to his end. So everything was there, the music was there, all the suggestions were there, and he was doing all the skits in his apartment. And he really loved it, and for me that was a very good exercise to do all those things in English, and also to use the musics and to his end and see all the reactions. So that was really great, and I also experienced when I do really therapeutic sessions, and especially for every single session I did online, I always install the Swan. I really love to work with the Swan, and then also with yes and no signals. Every time I had the feeling that the subconscious mind really understand that there was a distance between us, that there was only the screen that I had to work with, and every time the yes and no signals were extremely big. It was really movements of the hand, so
Hmm.
so it was really easy for me to understand what was going on. So that's something that I experienced a lot when doing online sessions. So for me, it's as powerful as a one-to-one session. Of course, when you are this therapist that use a lot of touching, or you combine your hypnosis sessions with tapping or other techniques where you really need that physical contact, then there are some limitations, of course. But most of the time, I all the techniques that I use in my therapy room, I can use them online as well.
Well, I think the question often comes to, instead of being what can't I use, instead what can I use instead? So,
Yeah.
I mean, the simplest example is that if a Dave Ellman, this is a conversation that keeps popping up, the Dave Ellman floppy arm drop inside of the process, we could just have the client lift their arm up and let it plop down themselves. I use something that I picked up from Ken Guzzo years ago about using some of the muscle testing as an instant feedback mechanism, and looking at it to go, okay, well, I can't reach through the camera lens and do that, but what's another bit of hypnotic phenomenon that I can do that has a kinesthetic result right away? So it's actually driving many of us to become more creative inside of what we do. And I think the better thinking is that, rather than what can't we do, instead, what can we do?
Yeah, of course. It's those things will make you more creative. Will give you new ideas to do stuff. I was last week. I was teaching at Hypnobiz Australia my fast and powerful induction training, and of course always there is the question which is the best induction, or what is the your go-to induction. And I explain always when I do trainings about inductions, or when I do in my 7-day training, I talk about inductions. There is no best inductions. You always have to find something that is suitable for the situation, for the client, and for yourself. So with when I do a one-to-one client, most of the time I use my a hand drop induction, or the 8-word induction,
Mhm.
or my brand new Rob's flip flop induction. But I can't do that online, because of course, that's not working online. So online, I most of the time go to an iLock induction. So there is an induction, there is a technique, there is a deepener, there is everything is available for every situation. So that's also online. If you want to do some tests, if you want to do some phenomena, you can do everything. I did an entire hypnosis show with that guy. So yeah. So then, yeah, then you can do tests. That's that's for sure.
Well, this is a conversation, which I love how a lot of the folks that I'm inviting on during this series are bringing up some of the same themes that I was talking with someone last week, Kerry, who's in Perth in Australia, and he brought up the fact that there is a small time delay sometimes with these technologies, which the solution simply becomes what we often would end up doing in a remote session anyway. Become a little bit more demonstrative with your language, a little bit more specific with your instructions, see that we have that compliance in motion. Do you have some tips, let's say, for the actual practitioner in terms of how they can better approach the technology side of things and just make it a better experience for their client?
In the past, I was using Skype, and I encountered sometimes some problems with Skype. There were some sessions that for me, I decided not to go through, because most of the fact it was at the end of the client, so that they didn't had like decent internet connection. I'm speaking years ago
Right.
now.
Yeah.
The last few years, even when I start using Zoom, I didn't have that issue anymore. Of course, more and more clients have decent internet. But like yesterday, I was talking with somebody I met in Australia, somebody from New Zealand, and she said, "Yeah, I'm doing sessions with my client now, but I have to go to my driveway, to the end of my driveway, and I sit in my car, and that's the best way I have internet, because we don't have really good internet. So but you can have a client that has that same problem. So what I always do, before I start a session, of course I have a conversation with the client, and then I pay really attention to whatever is going on in the live stream, and if there is any delay, if there are like jumpy images, or frozen images, and if it's not good, then I probably not gonna go on with the session. I really want to have a clear view and a good Of course, I always give the seconds after I do my induction and a few deepeners. Then I will give the suggestion that the moment they can't hear me anymore, or they can't see me anymore, or there is a loss of connection, that they just pop out of hypnosis and try to get in contact with me. So I really want that everything is really safe. To give an example, that Italian guy, of course, the more sessions we did, the more response we get for hypnosis. So he became a really super somnambulist. So we never had that problem, but I'm quite sure that the moment that there was a loss of connection, he was not. He was popping out of hypnosis because of the fact that I installed it. But I'm quite sure that if it was not installed with him, he might stay in hypnosis for a few hours, because he was like, yeah, he was really enjoying it. He was getting addicted to it. So that was
Well, let's get specific on that. What are you doing to install that strategy if the connection drops out?
So the thing that the moment after my induction, and I do like I just say a few times deeper, and then I say from now on, every time you don't hear me anymore, or you if there is the connection is lost, then you will open your eyes, you will be back in the room, you will be totally alert, and you will get to try and in touch with me as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So you're doing that in the process, is when you're saying.
Yeah, I do it right away, so
Yeah.
that it's installed, because you never know, there might be an electricity failure or internet failure, or at my end or at their end. It can happen. So many things can happen, and I just want to be clear that they will pop out and get in touch with me. So that security is there, and that's also what I teach in my trainings. At the end of my 7-day training, I talk about doing sessions online. Although most of my students never use it, they will use it now. But I already tomorrow at 11 I will do a webinar with only for my students here in Belgium, to explain again all those things about doing sessions online, because most of them never did a session because of the fact that we don't have a
Right.
demand here in Belgium.
Well, I love that aspect of, again, the flexible nature of where we can put it. That, I mean, it's the same as any disclaimer we put into the process, that, the stage hypnotist may sometimes use the phrasing of, only ever head back to the audience if I direct you to do that. A lot of people, I know Mark Savard tells the story in his show of the guy who walked back to the audience and was still doing all the routines.
Yeah.
Because the subjective experience was not what the guy expected it to be. I bounce back and forth. Sometimes I will do it during the process. More recently, I've just been kind of letting it be a throwaway moment, and just, very obviously that if for some reason the connection drops out, clearly you'll immediately know that and just easily reestablish the connection, and we'll pick up exactly where we left off. Make sense?
No.
And just let it kind of be this throwaway thing of just, that's just the most obvious thing that we would do, and just treating it that with that attitude. You put up a video online. Is it okay if we add that to the show notes with this episode?
Of course.
Which I've got to have you chat about the thing about the cat.
Yeah.
How's that for an intro?
No, one of the things that I wanted to give as advice to everybody, because I can assume that people are now in a rush to do things like this, and say, okay, we have to go online now, and we never did it before, and I just put my lap. Some people just can't drive to their office because or they don't like my therapists. They work at my offices, of course, but everything is closed, so they have to do the sessions from their home. And I can imagine that a lot of therapists out there have the same problem. So they are not allowed to drive to their office. So they have to do it at home. But of course, because of the fact that everybody has to stay home, also the children are there, and there is maybe other people walking around. And so my advice was, be sure that the session online is as professional as you do the session in your therapy room. So maybe clear out the room in your house that you can sit, that you are at ease, that nobody is entering that room, that the moment when somebody is hypnotized, their eyes are closed, and they're not going to see that the grandmother is at your back walking through the image. But that's not what you want, of course. So just imagine you're doing your pre-talk, or you're just discussing what the problem is and what the goal is for your client, and yeah, your cat is in the same room, and it jumps on your laptop, and it starts pushing with their head against you, and then you have to say to the cat that she has to go away. It's not professional, of course, and I can imagine, especially when the first few sessions that people are doing, they just don't think about that. They
Yeah.
just put up a laptop and they say, okay, I have to see this client because it was scheduled, and they just do it, and all those things might happen, and that doesn't give a good professional look. So I think it's really important that everybody thinks about the way that they're going to act, and that they just prepare themselves in a good way, that they have a room where they can do it, where they will not be disturbed. It's the same for the therapist as for the client, of course, and then they can do a good professional session with the same good results as if it was a session one-to-one in the therapy room.
It's where along the way, there'll be those moments where certain things pop up you haven't yet troubleshooted. You haven't yet figured out what will happen in that situation. There's
Yeah.
a catchphrase that comes out of my live trainings, which is that let's look at a technique like a hand drop instant induction, which there's a bit of choreography to that. There's a bit of exactly the hand goes here, this hand goes there, here's the interaction, here's the safety of it. And if someone gets the steps wrong, they suddenly find themselves in a position that's just not comfortable.
Yeah.
And the beauty of that becomes, at least in the training environment, is to go, what's great about that? You will never make that mistake ever again.
Yeah, of course,
So the
of course,
moment the
of course.
cat's, jumping up and
Of course, sometimes by doing something wrong, I had it when I was creating my fast and powerful induction online training. I was rehearsing like 22 inductions, because of course I don't do those 22 inductions on a daily basis.
yeah.
I do like 5 of them I use on a daily basis. So I really wanted to be prepared the moment that the volunteers, we had a call out for volunteers, because I really want just to have people from outside to be the subject on the video. So I was just with one of my staff at that time, rehearsing those inductions, and all of a sudden I was thinking about, that was not exactly the way that it's supposed to, but and then I rewatched a video of my mentor Jeffrey Stevens doing that induction. I said, I'm doing it wrong, but actually I'm doing it better. So I did something totally wrong, and it's that way that I came up with the Rob's flip flop induction. But at that time, I was not sure. Maybe I saw it somewhere else. So I sent a video, a recording of that rehearsal to Sean Michael Andrews, and I said, "Hey Sean, I did this, and I'm not sure that I think I created it myself by doing something wrong with the other induction. But yeah, a lot of those inductions." I just wanted to be sure that I didn't unintentionally stole the idea from somebody.
Yeah.
And he said, I never saw it before, he said, but I really love it. And
Well,
so,
I've got the opposite of that with Sean, which is that he and I taught a class together that we now have as a product, Master Hypnotist course, and it was March 2017. And I did my original, full-on hypnosis certification with him. And I introed a technique by saying, here's something that I learned from you back in like 2007. And he then goes, I've never seen that before, which then, of course, became the moment of, well, here's a Jason Linett original. No, it's that
yeah,
it's that innovation that we will make do with what we've got, the same as a client will hit some specific epiphany and you'll try to reverse engineer, how do I make this happen more consistently? You brought up stage hypnosis. And in one of my early shows, this is now a 12-year-old story at this point, that I did the classic, it's getting cold, grab onto the person next to you, and they help you warm up even further. And one time I threw in the phrase, and the person on the other side is even warmer, grab a hold of them too. And I didn't expect it that the big guy on the end of the row suddenly grabbed me. And it was the biggest laugh of the night. I
yeah.
completely lost it and took me a few moments to reclaim composure. And it was the thing that everyone talked about. You know what's funny about that, Rob, though? The other 300 or so shows I did after that one, can you believe the luck? Every single time, the big guy at the end of the row always grabbed me. And always I lost composure, and it was the fun. Yeah, I figured out
Yeah.
a way to make it happen on
Yeah,
purpose.
of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's the thing that a lot of people don't get when they go to like a comedian or something, and they just think, oh, the comedian is reacting to something that's going on, but yeah, actually, when you go the day later or the day before, he was reacting at the same kind of thing. It just makes sure that this is going to happen, and then if he's a good actor, is a good comedian, then it looks like it just only happened that night, and that's something that's really nice. And most of the also before, when I did my other shows like clown shows and magic shows, I always adapted to my shows to things that just happened during the show and that were really good, and then yeah, you find a way so that it will happen the next time as well, and that's how good skits or good jokes comes alive, of course, by some things that or are going wrong or are not going as you expected. So
Yeah, and I'd highlight something back to what you said, that really the same as everything we've talked about how to modify your process, how to treat it as being absolutely normal, because it is. It's how a lot of us have been doing sessions for years. I would highlight that today's a day that I was recording 4 of these, but now it's 3. Because as of yesterday in the United Kingdom, they issued a stay-at-home order, which changes it up. Because like right now, at least as of today, as I'm recording, it was the governor of Virginia that put out the big release yesterday that the school year is now canceled the rest of the school year, and they're still deciding exactly what that means, defining what are essential businesses and non-essential businesses. I love the conversations that liquor stores and marijuana dispensaries are still considered essential. But this does throw in, and it lists things like, the exceptions of how home supply stores can modify, how pet food stores and grocery stores can modify. But at least in terms of the Virginia press release, that I'll read it here. Any brick and mortar retail business not listed above may continue to operate, but limit all in-person shopping to no more than 10 patrons per establishment. If any such business cannot adhere to the 10 patron limit with proper social distancing requirements, it must close. I can read that, and I could say, at least in terms of Virginia Hypnosis, it's just me and one client. That being said, I'm kind of leaning more on the side of risk management to go, I don't want to be the guy who has to call someone up and say, hey, I've been diagnosed, you need to get to a hospital.
yeah.
So I've moved everything online during this time frame. And at least as of now, based on that phrasing, I'm allowed to drive. My office is 3 miles from home. I come to my office this way here. I love my kids, but it's a little quieter here. And I've got more control over that. But that being said, Michelle and I, my wife, we've already discussed, if there is a stay-at-home order, here's how we can modify, where I would just set up shop in a bedroom and, just be mindful of the hours. So there's where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's some creativity, we can make this work.
Yeah, of course. There's always a way to keep the business going, of course, and to find solutions. And here in Belgium, we still can drive to our work. So I drive to my office also to have some quiet and to work over there. And like tomorrow, when I do that online thing with my students, I will be at my office. But of course, the moment they say that we can't do that anymore, like in France, for example, or like Italy, yeah, then we have to find another solution, and then I will find a way. I don't have kids, so nobody except for my wife can disturb me when I'm doing sessions here. But
She's allowed.
our house is big enough, so we can be far enough away from each other so they can't distract me when I do like an online session or something. But of course, there's always a solution.
Right. And before we wrap it up here, any tips, any advice in terms of business as usual, having those inquiries coming in and still being available? Because clearly, this is a time where people are stressed. This is a time where people are anxious. I keep coming back to Frank Kern in the marketing world, who put out something to his audiences going, you can continue to run your business during this, just don't be the person who runs your business because of this. So what advice do you have for people in terms of getting out there and still having those new inquiries coming in?
Oh, the thing is, I think it's really important that you stay in the picture, of course. So don't go like, probably the next 3 months I can't see clients, so I'm going offline and I'm not put myself out there anymore. So keep doing that, of course, just to be consistent. And then one of the other things, the one thing that I didn't stop at the moment is my telephone service. So the moment the client calls our office, there will be somebody picking up the phone. It's an outsource service that does it, but I didn't stop that contract because I really want that everybody can reach us. Of course, there are less phone calls now because people are busy with other stuff. But between 8 and 6 in the evening, our phone will be answered, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have like a service like that, just don't say, okay, I will let them go through voicemail. Be there for your clients, especially because they have questions. At our place, it's of course the students and the clients. But be there. Be sure that their emails are answered. That everything is like it should be. That it's like normal, and don't hide yourself. Be sure to be out there, and that's one of the things that I'm a bit concerned about. All those cancellations already now for like conventions and things like that are going in August or in September, and I think that's like I can imagine that they decided to do the European champion football and things like that, and then now the Olympic Games, because of course athletes have to prepare and have to know what's going on. I can understand that, but I can't understand why they are already like announcing conventions and gatherings like they cancel it already for August and September, because I think that's maybe giving a bad signal. I'm really holding my heart for Hypnotists, because I saw that Magic Live, what is actually 1 week after Hypnotists in the same venue in Vegas, is cancelled. So I
Well, I
really
think
hope that, but
I think a lot of these groups have been doing at least a good job of, keeping that communication open and at least being transparent as to why they're doing what they're doing. And actually, for those, this will be in time. The Hypno Expo, the big conference that the IMDHA puts on, they've been doing that virtual for years as an option, and just that's the one option. So that's where I'd say, stay tuned to those groups the same way that you and I were chatting before we hopped on. But I opened up a conversation with people signed up for a class right overlapping when this order was issued, just to say, yeah, okay, so here's 3 options. What's best for you? Rob, this was fantastic to have you on here and share some real workable insights. Where can people find you? How can they best get in touch with you?
I have, of course, I have Facebook, so they can. I'm limited with my friends, so friend request I probably can't accept anymore. But I also have the European Hypnosis Academy Facebook page, so that's actually the best way to follow me. I also have my 2 weekly hypno advice videos. There is a YouTube channel, also European Hypnosis Academy. But also when they like the European Hypnosis Academy Facebook page, they will see those videos popping up, of course. And we have our website, europeanhypnosisacademy.com. And there they can find the trainings that are going to be live somewhere in the world, but I don't know when. But of course, also our online trainings can be found on that website.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of the programs that Rob has put out online. They're phenomenal, so definitely look into those. Rob, thank you so much for coming on.
It was my pleasure.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for using this as a resource in terms of advancing this profession, leaving your reviews, sharing it on your social media streams, and again, to keep in contact with what's going on in the industry. The hub right now for us is over at worksmarthypnosis.com/now online. No punctuation, no spaces in the middle, just the 2 words pressed up against each other, now online. That's where you'll find that step-by-step technical tutorial, a bit of a shopping list of the resources that I personally use, and then some upcoming educational events which are happening interactively online as well. So check that out. Again, worksmarthypnosis.com/now online. I look forward to seeing you live and in person very soon. And as we're saying this month, of course, wash your hands.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast. at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.
Hey there, it's Jason, and I want you to be one of the first to find out as we upload amazing new content. So do this right now. Click the subscribe button right here on this video. That's going to link you to our YouTube channel here, and you will be the first to find out as new resources and downloads are made available. Do it now.